Okay, we're going to go ahead and get started. Hello and welcome, everyone. My name is Amelia Niger, and I'm the Education Specialist with the Oracle Applications and Technology Users Group. I'm excited to welcome you all to the Cloud EPM and Hyperion Week session titled FCCS to ARCS, Compliance Reconciliation at Warp Speed. Before we get started, I'd like to mention that in addition to our OATUG regular e-learnings, we do put on themed education weeks like this one throughout the year. So be sure to look for those on our events page. Make sure to save the date for our Ascend conference next year. It'll be at the Caribe Royale Resort in Orlando from June 11th to the 14th. A quick reminder for today's webinar, you will be on mute throughout the session. However, you are welcome to send questions through the chat at any time, and we'll address those questions at the end of the webinar. If you're interested in receiving CPE credit, your participation is required, so make sure you're logged in for 50 minutes and ask at least a question in the chat area. Additional info about Cloud EPM Week can be found on our website's landing page. We are recording this session, and the recording, as well as the slide deck, will be available to Cloud EPM and Hyperion Week attendees and OATUG members in the knowledge base. You'll see the link for that in the chat area shortly. And now I'd like to turn it over to today's presenter, Kelly Green, who's the Senior Consultant from DataVale. So thanks so much, Kelly, for presenting, and you can take it away.
Thank you. Okay, so today we're going to talk about ARCS, specifically how to get to ARCS faster. So if you do the survey at the end, you can be entered for a chance to win a Fire TV Cube. That's me, been around for a long time in the Hyperion community for 15 years or so now, mostly consolidation, account recs, and reporting. We're a company called DataVale. We're a full service Platinum Oracle partner, 18 specializations, EPM, DB, ERP, analytics, the whole gamut of the Oracle world. That is just the EPM stuff and across all of the industries. All right, so this is how to get to ARCS if you already have FCCS. So we're going to assume that you have FCCS and that you're looking at ARCS and want to get there most efficiently. So the similarities are that both systems use general ledger data. They're both focused on external financial reports. They both go to internal and external audiences. They utilize your organizational structure and a data management load process. The differences are that FCCS is going to use periodic movement. It's multidimensional and it has a reporting engine. ARCS uses the ending balance and just has a single profile dimension. The ARCS implementation process at a high level: configure the system and attributes, set up security, build the profiles. Profiles are what turns into a reconciliation when you apply it to a period. Do the data integration, then validate all of the above. Tips: focus on the balance sheet. You can reconcile anything you want, but if you start with the balance sheet, it allows you to use the process that you're already familiar with to get used to a new system. Do not build for exceptions, build for the majority, and then handle the exceptions as they come up. Some ARCS terminology. So a segment is an individual piece of metadata, like a dimension in FCCS. We're going to have more than one of those. Profile is all of your metadata for reconciliation. So think of like an account number and it has all of your segments together. And then that is what you use to hold all your attributes as well. And then a reconciliation is a profile applied to a period that's available to hold data. Segment. This is the most important attribute and it cannot be changed. So think about it. Make sure you really analyze all of your data and all your processes so that you get the best setup you have here. It applies to all profiles and it determines the detail level of each reconciliation. So you have FCCS, start with company and account. That's what most people do. That is, it's a good level of detail. It applies to all your financial reports. and every account is going to have company and account level detail. Don't add segments for exceptions. A single segment can have a non-standard value. So for example, if you needed to add intercompany just for a handful of accounts, you can add the intercompany information in the account segment for those so for those exceptions. Conversely, if you added a segment for intercompany, every single account, every single profile would have to have something in the intercompany field. You see at the bottom there, I say no leading zero, so you can't just put 000 because it'll cause problems later, but you'd have to put something like 9999 or no ICP for every single profile instead of just handling a few exceptions. Remove prefixes. Don't put A in front of account, don't put C in front of company. So if you had that stuff in your FCCS application, don't do that here, but also don't have any leading zeros. The majority of the system is maintained in Excel with CSV files going in and out. So a leading zero will disappear and cause you to create duplicate profiles when you don't mean to and when you don't need to. So don't have leading zeros. Account type. You have 5 system attributes that are utilized in a dashboard. You cannot change what those attributes are. You cannot change what attributes are in the dashboard. You can't really do anything with the dashboard as far as configuration. So use these 5 knowing that you can look at them on the dashboard. Account type allows a hierarchy of members. So balance sheets. You see here we have assets broken out. Based on your consolidated balance sheet report in FCCS, build it as a hierarchy. It only displays at base level. So like in my example to the far right here, cash would show up, assets would not. So that's how it's going to display. But if you build it based on your consolidated balance sheet report, you instantly know where all of your profiles should belong. Currency. All currencies are set up by default, like 180 of them, all of them. Uncheck the used ones, uncheck the unused ones. You can see there's an enabled flag over there. You can uncheck that. So because anything that is enabled will show up in dropdowns. So disable all of the ones that your company doesn't use so that your users don't have to wade through 180 currencies in alphabetical order to get to the 2 or 3 that you use. Just base this on the entity attributes in FCCS. So dump your metadata out, see which currencies you have set up, and keep those. Organizational unit. This is a hierarchy to show the structure of the business. Legal entity is the most common. You can set it up however you want, though. It controls your workdays and holidays. You can see there on the right, workdays are checked at the bottom. Holiday rules, you can set up as many as you want. So this is, in ARCS, this is used so that in different locations, maybe they don't work Friday and Saturday, but they do work Sunday. You can set that up and it helps determine how long they have to do the reconciliations based on their local calendar, not necessarily the corporate calendar, if that's how you want. Same with holidays. July 4th is generally during month-end close and the reconciliation period in the United States. So you can make that one a holiday and that'll push your due dates out, but maybe someone in Canada or Mexico doesn't have that day off, so they would have a work day there. View-only security can be applied here. So if you have a controller over North America in this example, that person could have access to all of the reconciliations, even though they're not assigned as a preparer or reviewer to any of those. You assign it at the organizational unit level and not the profile level. It's far less maintenance. Less maintenance you have to do on setup, less maintenance you have to do due to turnover. You can also do comment-only security, so those people can view and comment. Based this on your FCCS entity dimension, start with your most used hierarchy. Legal, if it's reporting, if it's just FCCS total geography, start there. Your member name becomes your organizational unit ID, so maybe that's company number. Your alias in FCCS becomes your name here. So then you have that level of consistency back and forth. Users can see both of those and they will know immediately what company they're working on. If your holidays do not impact due dates, ignore. So my July 4th example, if that doesn't change the due date of your reconciliation, don't set it up as a holiday in ARCS. Attributes. ARCS comes with attributes throughout the system. Everything is an attribute in the system. You can create unlimited additional attributes. These are the types you can make: text, which is just an open text box; date and time; an integer, a number, true, false; a user, yes, no. You can use that to collect data during reconciliations. You can use it to assign data to a profile. And then any attribute can be used to filter the display of reconciliations. So you can set up new ones to further dissect your business in any way that you look at it: country, region, line of business. And for those, you would assign that to the profile as an admin, because those aren't going to change. So your country isn't going to change each month. The other ones you could use to collect it are, what is the impact on financials? Did you attach all of your documentation? Those can be yes, no. So you have all those different options for anywhere that you need to assign something or anywhere that you want to collect something. So one attribute you could do is if you have custom dimensions that apply to your balance sheet accounts, so maybe not cost center, but maybe it's profit center or region, you can make that an attribute and assign that to every reconciliation. Process. That's another one of your 5 dashboard attributes. It is not utilized by any system function. So you can use it for anything you want to divide up your data for dashboards or filters. Don't waste it. Definitely use it. Balance sheet is what comes, just a single value called balance sheet is what comes listed from Oracle. Not useful. So you could put in your org unit. You could put in if it's accounts payable or accounts receivable, different departments. However, whatever would help you to look at the completion percentages of the system is what you should put in the process attribute. Other configurations. So you have frequency. This is how often your profiles are prepared and reviewed. Monthly is the most common, then quarterly. You can do annual. You could do something else if you want. Each frequencies are assigned to months, assigned to periods. Risk rating, get that from your audit policy. Formats, start with the defaults that Oracle provides you, and then add only as necessary. Holiday rules, get from HR. Periods, set it based on the fiscal calendar and monthly close in your FCCS system. So if you have 13 periods, set up 13 periods. If you have a non-calendar fiscal year, set that up. System settings, follow the setup guide, most self-explanatory things like, do you want email notification on? How many days before the due date do you want the email to be sent? Do you want people to be able to delete comments, things like that? That's system settings. Reviewer levels, add 5 attributes for each level to every profile. So one of the system settings is the maximum number of reviewers. I always set that one higher than the maximum number of reviewers required. Most is just 1 level. Some people have 2 for higher value accounts. You can have up to 10. When you export the data out to do maintenance, each reviewer is 5 columns. So you've got 5 different attributes per reviewer that you need to fill in. So if you leave it at 10, your file is 50 extra columns wide. So try to knock that down just to save your admin some headaches when they go to Excel. Security. Most users are already going to exist for FCCS. Add the ARCS user role to it. So you could even go into your identity domain admin area, select users by role FCCS-test user, export that, go to ARCS test user and import that list. That's your security. Done. Administrators are usually the same people. Add the ARCS admin role, provision new users where needed, and then you can create teams in ARCS. So that's normal provisioning. Then you can create teams. teams work really well in ARCS. You can do it however you want. Some things I've done are by account groups, so like AP, AR, fixed assets, by company, by department. You need a separate team for preparer and reviewer and view and comment, but the same people can be in those. So if you have a 3-person AP department and you require each reconciliation to be reviewed, you can set those 3 people up as AP preparer team and AP review team. The system will not let the same person prepare and review it, but they can be in the same team. A person, first person available would check out the rec, would do the rec and submit it, and then the next person available of the other 2 could take it and review it. That works really well. You don't have to maintain as much when you have turnover, especially in high turnover departments, something like AP or AR. Then you build profiles. This is sort of the meat of the ARCS system. All the setup that we did is now applied here. As I mentioned earlier, the ARCS mass maintenance is done in Excel. Create a single profile on the web using this picture here on the right, then export the file as unformatted CSV, and it'll give you all the fields you need to fill in Excel, and you can copy and paste and do all the fun things that accountants love to do in Excel. Fill in your whole setup. Leading zeros will get lost, causing problems when importing. Data in each field must be exact, which is the reason to create one, then export. And you might need to create more than one just to see what comes out. So like on the picture there, you got balance, match, percent, tolerance in the method. Maybe you need to check that drop down to see what else is in there if you're going to use another value, just to make sure that you're getting the right information populated. Each profile can easily have 50+ attributes. So everything you see on this picture on the right is an attribute. Everything in bold is an attribute that needs to be populated. And there are there's 5 screens of attributes. Not all of them must be populated. Some are actually invalid for certain profiles. Where it's populated, the data must be exactly what the system expects. Most data are driven from just a few key fields. Some fields are the same for all profiles. So the key fields are going to be your segments in a lot of cases. So your company and account. Your account is going to drive most of them. It's going to tell you what the account name is, what format is, the risk rating, the account type, the normal balance. All those things you can see at the bottom are all going to come from account, no matter what your other segments are. Some are the same for all profiles. So your summary, your active in column G, yes. Your summary reconciliation, no. Those could be the same for everybody. Your account recon method could be the same for everybody. So those are the 2 main ways that your profiles will get populated. Input should be profile and then build cross-reference tabs. So if you take Smart View, pull all the existing balances from FCCS at the level of the rec, so let's say company and account, that's your population. So if you do balance sheet items, not income statement, 0 level company, 0 level account, zoom in, suppress missing, that's your population for recs. Use the admin extension to get the metadata and attributes for the FCCS dimensions, especially alias and currency. So within the segments, within the dimensions that you're using for segments, so entity and account type, format, method, normal balance are all based on account. Organizational unit and currency are actually based on company and account. And the profile name is based on the alias of all segments, if that's what you want. That's just a quick way to do it. Concatenate those 2 aliases together. Of course, you are free to choose other methods. I had some Excel examples. So what you do is after you take the Smart View admin extension, you make yourself a reference table and you use that to drive all of those based on VLOOKUPs. So you have an account table that's all the accounts from FCCS, and then you have the alias there, and then you assign the account type and the normal balance and the risk rating, all of those. And then that will populate this for you. On to data integration. The import format, use the same data files as FCCS if you can, as long as you can get year-to-date values for ledger data. If you're just doing balance sheet, make sure it's your period ending data that you're getting from your ledger. Your import format is the same, but all of the target dimensions are profile instead of company account, cost center, etc. You want to include fields for delimiters. So you can see over there in my example, I have expression dash 99999 dash. I also have some expressions that are just dash. That's breaking up my dimensions from the ledger so that I can see them in the mapping. And then also ARCS puts dashes in between segments. So if your profile is company dash account, then you could, with delimiters, you'd have it to have far less mapping that you would have to do. You need to include a currency field and a source type field. You can't see the source type. Oh, it's on the upper picture. The source type needs to be source. It could be anything actually right here. And then you have to map it in the mapping to either source system or subsystem. Locations. You create locations like you do to load data to FCCS. Similar names make it easier to administer. So if you have multiple ledgers or multiple data files, name them sort of similar so that the admins will at least know where they go. Matching locations and folders are easiest for automation. So if you have a file getting dumped out of a GL, you're looking for it, you're placing it to a folder, you're renaming it for the period, you're uploading it to data management. You can reuse your code if your folder names are the same between the two systems. ARCS data loads are based on location, not load rule. So the load rule name that you're using for FCCS is not what you'll use in ARCS. It will run all load rules for the location. So if you have multiple times you need to run through the same file, that's great. Make one location, make 2 or 3 load rules, it'll run them all. If you need things to be separate, then you need separate locations instead of separate load rules in ARCS. Mapping. Your mapping is not going to transfer from FCCS to ARCS because you're going from multi-dimension to single dimension. If your dimension values are the same in ledger and ARCS, minimal mapping is required. So if you have company 1, 2, 3, 4 and account 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, import them with a dash between them, star map it out to the target, and you're done. If your dimension values are different, then complex mapping may be required. You can export all your dimension maps from your FCCS data management. Create new profile mapping in Excel using the logic across all those dimensions with a separate worksheet for each one, and then combine all those together to be profile. It does take a little bit to do. It can be done with a lot of Excel knowledge, and you can put it in there, and then it should not be as difficult to maintain. It's just a one-time pain of converting. So summary, for segments, use your FCCS dimensions. For account type, use your balance sheet line items. For your org units, use the FCCS NAD hierarchy, and your currency, use the FCCS currencies. If you do all this, you can have ARCS in weeks, not months. Your processes will be the same, your data will be the same, your users will adapt faster because everything looks as similar as it can. And you will have a successful ARCS implementation. And you can realize that ROI faster and make your auditors and your controllers happy people. Reminder to complete your session evaluation. Win an Amazon Fire TV Cube. So I believe that is all. So now we can do questions. I will start here in the chat.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Kelly. Yes, we did have a couple questions in the chat here, and this is a great time to go ahead and send any other questions that came up during the presentation. First one we have from G. Douglas is, can these segments be fed in from EBS GL to FCCS and or ARCS?
So your segments can definitely be based on EBS, and then we're also saying you definitely base it on FCCS. This was assuming that your FCCS was built and designed already. You can't feed segments into ARCS. You would have to maybe export your segments, concatenate them together into a profile, so company dash account, something like that, and then you would use that to build the profiles for ARCS. So not fed in. And likewise, if you added an account in EBS, you wouldn't feed that to ARCS. You would have to set up profiles for every combination of company and account that has a balance.
All right, thank you so much. We do have another question. Are there specific considerations slash issues if we elect implementing ARCS first and doing FCCS later?
So again, this was based on ARCS being set up. You can or FCCS being set up. You can certainly do ARCS first. I do recommend, if people are hesitant about going to the cloud, to do ARCS first, because it's an endpoint of data. It's usually a smaller group of people, and it shows a really high ROI really quickly. But I would say the considerations of, if you know you're going to do both, but you're going to do ARCS first, look at all the design considerations and design FCCS and ARCS at the same time to leverage what we talked about here. So know your dimensions. You're going to have a company and account, or you're going to have cost center or region or something as custom dimensions. Make sure that you have the level of detail available for ARCS, and that I would set up a data feed, like your data file from your ledger. If it's not cloud ERP where you could connect directly, I would just have a data file that had periodic and year-to-date values in it, so I could use the same exact data file. And then, yeah, segment's the only one you can't change. So if you needed to add attributes later to break out region or line of business or something, that's totally doable. So those would be the main considerations if you went ARCS first and FCCS later.
Great, thank you. We did get a few more questions in the chat here. Liz's is a bit similar to the one above, but she asked, at what stage of implementation slash onboarding should we consider building an ARCS or FCCS? And then there's a follow-up. Is this after a company has fully implemented the GL system and been using it for a few months?
So if you are going through a transition or setting up a new GL, I highly recommend FCCS goes first, even before that GL. Point your old GL to FCCS, get your consolidation process and your financial reporting stable. Get your new ERP or GL system ready, and it just comes in. Now, if you want to build FCCS toward your new one, if you're changing your chart of accounts or all of your naming or something, you can certainly do that. In that case, map the old to the new, and then bring your new one in as a data source. It provides a point of stability for all of your users so that when their GL changes, their financial reports don't, and that gives them warm, fuzzy feelings about their data being right. And then I would do ARCS either in parallel to SDCS in that case or after. But I would design ARCS slightly differently in that case, and I would do your old GL as is into ARCS, and then build all new profiles for the new GL. And the users would just switch over when their GL changes. And that's really just for ROI and to free up their time to allow them to implement a new GL.
Okay, from Monique, are there any common implementation errors that you see often?
The first one is having the wrong segment. I've had to rebuild customers' ARCs from the ground up because they chose too many segments to start, or it hasn't been too few. It's always too many. So you had people put in 5 segments and then they only use company and account, and everything else is just gibberish or zeros or something. And so it's difficult to use for the end users, and nobody wants it there, but you can't change it. So that's the big one. The other one is trying to do too much detail, thinking that you need to do cost center level detail, and then that only exists in the income statement, and people don't really do it anyway. So making it difficult so that the users don't adopt the system in any way that you do that is the biggest error. So ask the users what they want, ask the users what they don't want, and then make sure your system fits somewhere in between there.
Perfect. We got a thanks from Brandon. Appreciate it, Brandon. From Boris, how can you use ARCS to reconcile daily EBS outgoing cash versus liabilities from an external system, claims processing, etc.?
That's a good question because I missed it at the beginning. So ARCS is 2 components. Account reconciliation compliance is accountants doing their reconciliations monthly to validate the financial statements. That's ARCS compliant. And then account transaction matching is any frequency of matching of detailed transactions. So daily cash, daily payments, weekly receivables, anything you want if you have both systems. So if you have EBS subledgers and you download your bank statements, or you have a payment processing and claims processing, you can load those through into transaction matching. I did not go over transaction matching in this presentation because it really doesn't have anything to do with FCCS. And if you were considering transaction matching, I do recommend setting up ARCS compliance first, and then, because that will cover your entire balance sheet, it'll get that completeness audit check, and then add transaction matching after that to the places that you have data source or what you've prioritized, because each combination of data sources, so each bank, each subledger is a separate process, a separate whole setup and configuration. And then transaction matching, when you're done, it just gives you the data for compliance. So you need to do really all of that for EBS cash.
Thank you. Okay, next question. What do you see your clients do for data source integration using ARCS Data Manager versus using external ETL bolt-ons in cases where data needs to be transformed before it can be used for matching/reconciliations?
I don't recommend any ETL bolt-ons for ARCS. The data management tool will do transformations. You can do a lot of transformations in the data management tool, but almost always for ARCS, the data shouldn't be transformed as much is what your auditors will say. So it is more just mapping, and the data management tool will definitely do that right there. And then you can use automation. You can even load data directly to ARCS without using data management if it's already formatted, but that is less common in ARCS than it is with FCCS.
Thank you. Let's see. We had a couple more questions roll on in. If you're having to rebuild ARCS, is there a way to explore reconciliations for an audit trail for completed recs in previous periods?
That is a good question. The short answer is no. You can, well, actually there is. So there's a great tool in ARCS called Report Binder, and the Report Binder will export all components of a period of reconciliations with all the timestamps, attachments, and comments. So you'll have who did it, when they did it, who reviewed it, who approved it, answering all the questions, uploading all the files. That's all there. And it comes out as a zip file. It's great to give auditors whenever they ask for data. It's great to use for people who don't have licenses. We've put it on SharePoint and things like that for people to see. So you need to do that. To hold on to it for history, though, it is a little cumbersome because it is a file per month, but you can do it. And then once you build your new system, it is a start over. If you have to redo segments, like delete your whole system, start over. So you can't bring any of that history back in. So it would all be stored separately outside of ARCS as either zip files or unzipped. It has like an HTML web page navigation system that goes with it. And you could put that, like I said, on SharePoint or just keep it in sort of a secure location where only relevant users can access it.
Great. Okay, from Ryan, can users change preparer/reviewer responsibilities, or is that something done by the ARCS admin?
Generally, it's done by the ARCS admin. However, you can request reassignment on the fly. So if somebody's sick, somebody's on vacation, somebody wins the lottery, you can reassign their reconciliations on the fly. The reviewer can request the reassignment for the preparer and the reviewer, and then pick who that is. And then you can choose to either apply that ongoing or just have it for the current month. So if someone's sick and they're just out, you can reassign it, get it done, and then it will revert back to that person next month. Otherwise, if you want to carry it forward, like somebody won the lottery, then you would reassign, check the box for apply going forward, and the next month, the new person would keep that responsibility.
All right, I do not see any other questions at this time. Is there anything else you wanted to add, Kelly?
Um, be real sure that you want to do currency. If you do currency, multi-currency in ARCS, you have to reconcile each reconciliation in both currencies, in all currencies simultaneously. And so your USD and your euros would have to both come out to zero at the same time. You have to have a source of USD and a source of euro. The system does not translate balances, it only translates reconciling items. So that could be very difficult to do. And in most cases, the reconciliation really only needs to be done in a single currency. So think about that. Just think about that during your design phase. Go through any examples where you believe that someone would need to do a reconciliation in multiple currencies.
Okay, thanks for adding that in there. And as you can see from his screen there, don't forget to complete the session evaluation. Kelly or Donna, do y'all happen to have a quick link to post into the chat where people can quickly and easily click on that? That would be fantastic. We do have a link in there to our knowledge base where all of these recordings and slide decks will be posted within 24 hours. We do have another session later today at 3 o'clock. We also have a happy hour at 5, so we'd love for you to join us for that. That is registration, which is posted on our landing page. Grab your cocktails and bring your questions. Come ready. Thank you, Kelly, for posting that link. Appreciate it. And that is everything for today. So thank you, Kelly, for a
I,
great presentation. You have something else to add?
I do have one more plug.
Yeah, sure.
I will be on the closing panel tomorrow. So
Yes.
if you have further ARCS or FCCS questions, I will be available then.
Wonderful. Thank you for including that. Well, all right. I do not see any other questions in the chat at this time. So thank you everyone from coming out today. And that concludes this session. Have a great rest of your day.